This is Judge Joe Brown, and we're listening to We All Be News, news-free Dixie for the 21st century.
Yeah, we all be is lucky to have on the Honorable Judge Joe Brown. How you doing today, sir?
All right, the judge is in the house. Right now, I'm literally in the house of Black Entertainment. I'm down at the old Club Paradise, and we're looking around in this big structure that once seated 5,000 fans of black music who came for entertainment and a good time. And we're trying to get it going again and doing the documentary. So I'm down there doing a little leg work in preparation for that, but you will be seeing it before long. So how's everybody today?
Oh, we're doing great. We're blessed and highly favored, sir. And that's like some great work you're doing now in the city of good abode. So do you feel like that Memphis is in a renaissance right now in terms of rebuilding or building new structures, a new future?
Well, if we had less corruption in its political arena, it might be more profound, and also there seems to be a profound lack of attention to the black sector. We had $35 million spent down here on Bill Street Landing, and we got a giant catfish jungle gym, a gift shop, and a pub that's supposed to be a bar and grill that can't be operated because the private business that it was built to operate for their own gain at taxpayers' expense bailed out of it. So they built Chip's Moment, a brand new, fully equipped recording studio some years ago. We drank a little bit too much of that sauce and nothing came of it, but we can spend for everything except for black enterprise. So maybe we can get somebody down there in this majority African-American city that gets the idea that you perhaps need to pay attention to some of the people that put you where you are rather than those who just paid for you to get where you are. See, yes, sir. We need to do some changes, but there is a great potential for Memphis to grow. It should be one of the largest cities in America if we had people with the vision and the enterprise to make it so. This is supposed to be the main seaport for the Atlantic seaborne trade. It comes to New Orleans in the guise of large ships holding preloaded barges, and they get in the water at the mouth of the Mississippi, come up here to Mud Island, and get unloaded right at the center of the country's population. But I guess those who are in power are committed to keep big fish in a medium-sized pond, the big fish, who would become small fish if this city grew to the size it ought to be. So we've got some things we need to look into. But again, I don't know if I'm getting off point, but yeah, we could be big.
Well, actually, go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Judge.
Go ahead.
I was asking about that, like the lack of vision or leadership. You said it's a majority black town. We got a majority black leadership. But I'm disturbed by the fact that, you know, you got somebody like Jack Simmons, a white man, who's getting like $14 million with no big contracts from the city, like he's Dick Cheney's cousin. And yeah, you got a lot of black contractors can't get that type of deal. Let alone anything.
I just said that. Not only big contracts, but giveaway money. City gave away $28 million to this would-be airline that was talking about coming here and the use of a large building. They weren't even incorporated and never came, but the $28 million stayed gone. We were in the hole $85 million for this boondoggle down here, the Pyramid, and he just gave it away to Bass Pro for no compensation. We're famous for that. So if I'm not mistaken, this is supposed to be a democratic republic, and the majority of this town is not getting in any way, form, shape, or fashion any benefit from the economics. So that needs to change, and that's a political matter. Now, we've got two former chairmen of the Democratic Party, Sidney Chisholm, who this last election season put on a series of big picnics in the black community to introduce Republicans, white Republicans, to it. We had another former chair of the Democratic Party who took around slates of Republican candidates to black churches. We had Brett Thompson, who did the same thing, and they all charged money for that. And we have an embarrassment of, instead of just a crooked party, we've got a crooked party that works to get the other party elected so that they can continue to act as though they were the majority, which they are no longer, and everybody but the majority of the people in this town get some benefits. There hasn't been anything done for the black or, for that matter, the white middle class in a long, long time. So we need to look at what's going on and take charge. Right now, the Democratic Party ought to be the vehicle for a lot of things that are changing around the rest of the country that stay stagnant here, but they aren't doing the job, and it's not likely that they're going to, because they and the Republicans are in cahoots with the same old agenda, which is the people that have been into the real estate management, acquisition, and development, construction material supply get all of the money, and nobody else gets anything but crumbs out of this whole thing. It's the iniquities are actually ridiculous, and we tolerate it because we let it happen. Van Turner, another former Democratic Party chairman, was taking Republicans around and letting his picture be used for white Republican candidates to give black folk the impression that they were voting for a black candidate. See, that kind of thing, you need to ride them out of town on a rail that's tarred and feathered, they used to do. And that's being polite about it. But we need to take control of our situation before we get another situation like they've got in Ferguson. 78% black majority town. They only have 2 elected officials out of the many. They've got only 2 police officers that are black, and that's a disgrace, and nobody's even registered since all that fracas has been going on. We're getting like that here. We've got corrupted voting machines, the Dayball voting machines, based on Windows 2000, that do not have a firewall. They have no security. There are no longer any upgrades available for Windows 2000. And there have never been any. So since 2008, the feds have given us money to replace those machines with ones that leave a paper trail. All it requires is a simple majority on the county commission. Yet 3 African Americans on that county commission vote with the Republicans to keep that from happening. Why? Because all it needs is a cell phone, a smartphone, to walk in there and completely hack into the system, and you can control the elections, which is what they've been doing for the last several cycles. So we don't do what we ought to do. And we let people get away with it, and we went around and whine about why things aren't going well for us. Now, there are a lot of things we can do, and one of the main points is somebody needs to yank the Democratic Party's chain and say, when are you going to use the resources of this large national party to do something about these corrupt machines, so no matter how many of us come out and vote, we're not going to alter the outcome of not really an election, but a corrupt selection. So we need to have democracy working again in this area. We've got to hold some people to account. We've got 2 members of the Democratic Party on the county election commission, and they don't do anything. They don't understand anything. They don't call the press conference. They don't let us know about the chicanery and the dirty tricks being planned down there, and they're more anxious to put it on their social resume than they are to do effective work. It's time that we got something moving and hold people to account. We need to do something with the county educational system. Several people on the city council who voted to surrender the Memphis City Board of Education's charter to the county need to be held to the fire. And what we have right now is 62% of the students in the system have 4 votes on the County Board of Education, and 38% of the students have 6 votes. And in a few months, it's going to drop down to 6 for 38%, 2 for 62%. And their philosophy of education is to close down public schools. They've got a situation here where they've got level 1 schools that are about to fall out of accreditation. What they do is they take African-American teachers with 25, 20, 30 years of experience, bring them in, fire them or make them retire within a month, month and a half, and then they bring in 22, 23-year-old inexperienced kids who are going to teach for exactly 2 years so all of their student loans can be forgiven. And then you've got a private business that has been charged with going out, recruiting teachers, testing them, interviewing them, and hiring teachers for what is nominally supposed to be a public school system. And they make money off of it. So that's dropping a number of schools all the way through the bottom, and they've lost their state accreditation, and the County Board of Education turns them over to private businesses to operate as charter schools. Some of them, like the one that's right across the street from Booker T. Washington High School, don't even use textbooks, and they only have one African-American teacher on the whole faculty, and they're servicing the surrounding area as an elementary school. See, we allow that to happen with nobody paying attention. I guess we watch too much Atlanta Housewives and Tyler Perry and stuff like that and yuck sitcoms. But we really need to pay attention to what's going on because our children are not getting what they need, nor are we.
Well, Judge Brown, you said so many things. I could just go on tangents about you right on the mark and a lot of things you have been saying. And I was going to ask you, like you talked about how the voting machines are rigged, they're not up to date, how the Republicans are in power. Would it be in our best interest next year in 2016 to actually vote Democrat? Would it be better to vote Republican or hold them accountable?
You should vote Democrat. The Republicans are not anything that you should vote for because they have nothing to offer. They're just obstructionists. They have no programs. They have no platforms. Just in government, make it smaller. They have no solutions. They just say turn it over to private enterprise, and private enterprise is what you're complaining about anyway. There's nobody in the Republican Party on a national level or local talking about their friends in Wall Street investment banking who don't have to have any money to back their accounts. There's nobody talking about, well, how in the world are you going to pay for education if you say government needs to stay out of it? You say leave it to private enterprise, but so many people are out of work, it's a depression really rather than a recession. So where they get the money, we don't need government and health care. It all ought to be private, but how are you going to pay for private if you don't have a job? Unless maybe what you're talking about is getting government money to go in the pockets of the likes of, former U.S. Senator Dr. Bill Frist of Nashville, whose family started Blue Cross, Blue Shield, and other HMOs. And it's all about a money-making proposition. It's propaganda that people start accepting when there's nothing true about it. Hitler said it. Tell a lie long enough and loud enough, and you can get anyone to believe it, and they've done that. Abraham Lincoln said you can fool most of the people most of the time, some of the people all of the time, but you can't fool all of the people all the time. And we need to get to that third avenue right there and get back to not being so fooled. Now, come out and vote, but don't get disillusioned if your vote doesn't have the effect that you think it ought to, because they are stealing your votes. Make it a practice and a habit. Now, right this moment, there's a challenge going on to the August election last year, alleging voter fraud with corrupt machines. Well, they've been dragging their feet so that nothing can happen on that lawsuit until after the citywide election. Now, once again, we've got a situation. We've got an incumbent African-American mayor. I know some are angry with him. We've got one white candidate, and we've got 5 other African-Americans to jump in there and split the vote. Some of them already bragging about the money that they've got. Harold Collins is so deep under the thumb of Amy Wyrick in the DA's office and he's working there, but he got indicted and charged in a civil suit with embezzling $3.5 million from Mississippi Boulevard Church. But, you know, that's no big deal. You've got Harvey, and he's bragging about it'll take $500,000 to either keep him in the race or get him out. You've got Williams out of the police union. I know they're mad at AC about their pension situation. He's jumped in it. We've got what's his name, Whalum, who's jumping in it. And we've got one of the Fords, Justin's talking about getting in it. That's a built-in disaster for getting 28% of the population in here, another mayor that is another do-nothing, know-nothing, about nothing, except to be in the back pocket of organized large business. And that's somewhere along here, some of us have got to have some sense. That's why Steve Cohen is in as a U.S. congressman, because he had 14 African-American opponents, which is absolutely ridiculous. And nobody's in control, and the people that seem to have the strong arm in politics sit there, and they also have the opposite arm holding open their pockets to see what gets put in there. So we've got complete corruption right now in our political process. I said a lot about things that got people upset. I was just running for district attorney, but I said often, though they didn't report it, I've never lied to the public, and look what came out on Amy Wyrick. Let's see, we're at 11 cases by the appellate courts where they accused her of corruption, prosecutorial misconduct, gross misconduct, concealing evidence, destruction of evidence, and manufacturing evidence. Now, I note that every single one of the cases where these things came out, the defendants are white. Just imagine all of the ones where the defendants are black and nobody cares up in Nashville. And you've got an enormous mess. Right now, they are so into trying to make money off of us, and the rest of the people, white too, that they've turned in the county the process of taking care of booking people on criminal offenses to a private adjunct to Correctional Corporation of America. So they get paid for booking and processing. So what did they do? The county has directed its law enforcement officers not write traffic tickets anymore, but misdemeanor citations. So if you get a traffic violation in the county, read your device or the paper they give you carefully, because it's got a date for you to report in to be booked, processed, fingerprinted, and photographed for a misdemeanor rather than just an infraction. So that's to make people more money. Juvenile court is completely privatized, and one of the reasons they are not effective when it comes to dealing with the kids is they don't care. It's in their interest to keep everything chaotic because they are behind the scenes dealing with politics, which they're supposed to stay out of, and they make money. So the more our kids get into trouble and get locked up, the more money they make off of the private business that runs the place. First time I appeared in juvenile court 41 years ago, the clown that was on the bench there, the late judge, and I say that loosely, Kenneth Turner, who was a high school dropout, and that was the extent of his education, called me the N-word the first time I appeared down there. They had just been integrated about a year and a half before that. And it hasn't gotten any better. It's a circus down there. And the feds have been lambasting juvenile court, calling it the worst situation of justice. But our kids are down there, and we have no representation down there, and it's being used to control the plantation. That's the big house. In fact, the whole Memphis area is beginning to look like a plantation, but the Negroes have no cotton to pick. And everybody's vying to see white or black if they can be one of the overseers or somebody that works in the big house. I mean, I'm not very impressed with where we are right now because it's worse than it was 40 years ago. It's going down.
Yes, sir. Well, actually, go ahead. I'm sorry.
But we can do better if we get ourselves together and start paying attention to what's going on and holding people to account.
Yeah, you spoke about the juvenile situation, and we know about the teen mob violence that took place not too long ago, where the young man was the adult was jumped by a mob of black teens, and people complain about the judge making the bail so low for the teens to get out of jail. And just listen to you talk about the situation in juvenile court. Do you feel that was the right approach that the judge took? Who was a white judge?
Frankly, I don't think juvenile court would know how to cross the street if there was a crossing guard and a special signal light to say it's time to cross the street or stop. They wouldn't know. They don't have a clue. That place was set up 55 years ago to keep the black community in thrall and to also utilize their resources dealing with questions of paternity to blackmail most of the rest of the people in this place. You've got elected officials with 6, 7, 10, 12, in one case 18 outside children down there. Do you think they can be effective? No, they can't, because they get their chains yanked regularly. They don't do that, even though they raise enough ruckus to appear credible. And they've got $22 to $23 million in a sequestered, non-interest-bearing fund that's being used to finance political campaigns by certain people. It is a corrupt mess. It's completely privatized, and that started off because 33 years ago, the state Supreme Court held that the judge down there, because of his lack of education, was incompetent to hear a case, and he could not hear one without express written permission from all parties. So he started hiring all these referees and magistrates to do what we were paying him a full judge salary to do. Hell, he didn't even come in but twice a week. And he had in his own personal power, ignorance led him to it, because any fool knows that no judge can be both the prosecutorial authority, the defending authority, and represent parties before himself, even though he wasn't able to hear the cases. So juvenile court doesn't really have Department of Human Services down there. They don't have Child Protective Services down there. Everybody worked for Turner. And he had a contract, personal contract, to represent Child Protective Services and et cetera, Department of Human Services. He also had the personal contract to prosecute for child support violations. So he's supposed to be the judge, too. Well, later on in that same decade, the Sixth Circuit, in a case called Sevier versus Turner, said that was unconstitutional. No judge in America had that authority, and any plaintiff who proved that would be able to hold Turner and everybody involved personally liable for money damages. Nobody has taken them up until recently, and we've got a class action on that. But, I mean, that place is just absolutely corrupt. It needs to be torn down and built up all over again. And the travesty of the thing is since 1968, the state has authorized Memphis to have, and Shelby County to have, 2 juvenile court judges. The only thing that's required on that is for the county commission by a majority resolution, simple majority, to put the position on the ballot, and for the rest, next regularly scheduled election, which ought to be 2016, and we wouldn't need all those referees and magistrates that we have to pay out quite a few $1 million to support. See, so it's ridiculous.
Something like you talked about the economic situation in Memphis. You talked about the court situation in Memphis. So my question is, how will you handle, you see young people acting out the way they are acting out, from last year with the Kroger incident and now just recently with the BP incident. How would you handle the young black teens or youth in this,
See, we have no effective leadership, particularly in light of the need of young male youth to be shown how to be men. See, I'd say, you punk, this is not a man thing you're doing. You need to be moved on very harshly. And see, nobody in this community is prepared to do it. And the DA doesn't give a damn. That's just money in the pockets of her friends who profit by the chaos. You see, what the criminal justice system is about is no longer to control crime in this area. It's all about the business of controlling surplus labor. Labor is like a commodity: wheat, corn, soy, beef, pork, poultry. When you get a glut, the price drops. We have a big glut. So what you do is you cut back production, store the surplus, and subsidize the producer. The subsidy is a welfare check. The storage facility is not a grain silo, but it's a jail cell. Cutting back production is when the youth get into that, yo, man, you know, I ain't got no time for teach, man. You know, I got another agenda, man. You know, we drop out, bang out, drug out, get pregnant too early, too often, have no skills, have no education, and have the wrong way of carrying ourselves, so we are unemployable. Get that first felony, and you'll never get another job, and you make a lot of money for people while you're locked up in a jail cell. We've got a shortage right now on money for the county, but yet we, for one cash dollar up front, we give the operation of the phone system to a company in Texas. And when you make a call from down there, it's collect to the recipient, and then you find that the recipient gets charged on a minute basis thereafter. Well, AT&T, Verizon, whatever your cell phone company is, collects from you, and you have to pay them on your bill, and they send a check to the company in Texas. And 8 years ago, they were noting they had a net profit out of Memphis of $142 million, of which they paid 6% to the county. The only thing the county would need to do to operate that place is get a phone system operator and get 2 secretaries who are already employed to collect the checks. We could have $140-some million extra in the funds available for operation of Shelby County. See, it's all crooked. And nowadays they've gotten sophisticated and they do it above board. Now you spend $100,000 getting elected to a position that doesn't even pay $16,000 to $20,000 a year. You see, just figure out the math. So we've got problems, and nobody pays attention to them. But we need to focus on them, and we need to be very, very harsh on our elected leadership who's been dropping the ball. Not all of them, but a lot of them.
Yes, sir.
So that's what I'm down here doing today. I'm down at the Old Club Paradise. And 5,000 people. Do you realize there's not a single venue in the whole city that is available for concerts, activities, or anything that'll seat that many people? You can get them in the amphitheater maybe down here on Mud Island if it's not raining. But that's the only place. It's sitting right here. They're going to extend the Beale Street development south. And do you think we've got a realistic chance at this point of getting any of the assistance that the city just drops its draws for and throws at some of the other type businessmen around? Think about it. We've had everybody from B.B. King, Aretha Franklin, you know, the Temptations, you name it, Tyrone Davis, the whole 9 yards came through here. This was Cultural Center USA for Black American Entertainment, just like in New York at the Apollo Theater. This was the one for the Mid-South. It's gone down, but it can be brought back up, but it's like the city. Well, the Paradise, oh, my God. Wow, you know, it would make sense if we dealt with it, but we can't afford to spend the money down there. We got to go give it to somebody who wants to put a catfish jungle gym up here and wants to operate a bar to put a Beale Street, and we'll pay for it, the whole thing for this guy who bails on us. Yeah, great.
Oh, it is something wrong with us when it comes to that mentality. Well, we at the wedding and they run away, they don't show up. They don't commit like they should. That's same thing with the pyramid. Whether it be Calipari with the Tigers, it just goes on and on. Like Memphis always left at the altar with the bouquet and stuff, and no accountability because they trying to replicate these things. A Peabody Place at the train station. They trying to build another movie theater downtown. Where they got the Peabody Place right there, like a ghost town.
Yeah, and you see somebody gets to build the thing, equip it, and that's more money to the people in the 5 things: real estate, acquisition, management, supply, construction, and supplying materials for construction. See, that's the old money. There was one big boondoggle right down here. You go over the A.W. Willis Bridge to Mud Island. Now there's that roundabout. It used to be a stop sign and a right angle turn. Well, somebody bought that corner. Buying a corner on a city street from the city for $14,000, and a few months later sold it back for $6.8 million. The money went under the table. And then the rule is that when you had a certain density in a housing development, the developer had to donate the land to widen the road and pay for the road wide. Well, the city council went and paid him for the strip instead of him donating it, and the city council had the road construction done instead of him doing it or them doing it. See, that pyramid was supposed to be the same size as the ancient Cheops pyramid, and it was supposed to be built down here on the south end of town on the bluff where the River Mott is now, or River Mark, but the people that own the property down there got it where it is in that little hole 7 feet below the river level, where the acoustics were horrible, the pitch was bad, and everybody was cramped up in there. Now they gave it to Bass Pro free of charge. It's supposed to bring in 128-some jobs. Big deal.
I mean, where do you think this comes from? Like this way of thinking. I mean, like, it's just like why do they think like this? Like, what is wrong with this city that we can't get things done? So even with the sanitation workers, they still got their unresolved from '68. Every 5 years they come together to do a ceremony, and like they like to be like we love to be tortured. Like we got Stockholm syndrome.
See, yeah, it is exactly. See, this city ought to be a show place. And it could be.
Mm-hmm.
But there's one thing, we didn't suffer like a lot of southern places did because of Boss Crump, who came here at the turn of the 19th, 20th century, where he was sent up here by the richest white plantation owner in Mississippi to guard the property interest of his part black son, Robert Church, who kept getting ripped off. That was Boss Crump. And he made sure that blacks never lost the right to vote because they voted in block for him. They were the Lincoln Republicans. That was a black organization. Now, if you go to the Lincoln Republican functions now, you don't see a single black face in the place. It's an interesting transition. But Crump ran this town based on a large white minority and an absolute black block vote to give him the absolute majority. Now, that being the case, we've got politics based on brokering the delivery of black block votes. That's those sample ballot things. That comes from Crump, from people like Lieutenant Lee, one of the first officers in the U.S. Army in World War I, who came back, and he got, I read some notes he left one time in the late 20s. Crump paid him $10,000 to deliver the black block vote, and he gave everybody a slice of watermelon, a shiny silver $50, and a shot of whiskey, and he got all the votes out, and it only cost him about $4,000, so he was able to pocket the enormous amount of about $6,000, which was big in the 20s.
Right.
That's how we did it.
Mm.
So right now we've got people who have business interests that Republicans deal with, and they don't want to anger them, so these nominal Democrats don't really do Democratic things. They just do some empty mouthing, and they are owned. A good illustration, it's an interesting movie, go see Django with Jamie Foxx, and you watch that house Negro, the butler, that Samuel Jackson played, and you'll get a good idea of black Memphis leadership. It looks a lot like Samuel Jackson's butler. What we need is a Django, the D is silent, to come here and do something about it. One to develop that attitude. I don't mind doing that kind of thing, but, you need some backup, and nobody wants to back up anybody. They stay home, stay quiet, and some of the middle class who like to go to cocktail hours like to act like they know what's going on. Who did you hear? I heard in the Commercial Appeal. Well, guess what? The Commercial Appeal is owned by the Harris family, and it doesn't give a doggone about this part of the community. It also owns Channel 3 and a big part of Channel 5, and 13 is Fox, and Fox is what it is. So our whole source of information is based on some people that want to feed you a lie long enough and loud enough to get you to be fool enough to believe it against your interest. We had some people like the Rabbit Chipmunk, Thaddeus Matthews, who just topped out to 5 years, which, interestingly enough, from my way of thinking, is, okay, who was paying him off when the crime he was charged with carried a minimum sentence of 20 years in the penitentiary. So you see, you've got that kind of thing going on. All of our sources of information are corrupt or adverse to our interests.
Well, Judge,
What's that?
I was like, well, that is Judge Brown. He said that he's going to be sentenced. I mean, he went on his Facebook page and said that was wrong information, that he's going to be sentenced on May 26th, and that the charge should give him 5 years. He got a lot of things dropped. So you think he made a deal?
Yeah, it's plea bargain. What the main charge was carries 20-year minimum sentence. And it's about child pornography. He put the thing on the net. He had it out there. That matches what the crimes law says about the crime. So, see, what we also know is Amy Wyrick was financing, in part, his operations for the last 3 months before the August election. So there you go. That's payback. That's corruption.
So what about the people that gave him the photo to put up? I mean, he was putting up there for, not necessarily for child porn.
Thaddeus Matthews is nothing but trying to play shock jock. He's reckless, he's a bully, he's irresponsible, and if you knew what was going on behind the scenes, he's in the back pockets of a lot of people that he was trying to criticize until they paid him off. He approached a lot of people about money. I won't talk about you if you pay. He was particularly bad about black women and really tried to bully them. But the point of the exercise is 5 years is what the plea bargain was. He hasn't been sentenced yet. That's what he entered the plea to. So we don't know whether he'll go do time or whether he'll get a suspended sentence. Speaking of which, I think it is a disgrace that Henry Brooks was not put on diversion. That was a deliberate effort to ruin that fine woman's political career by having her plead out and only getting probation to a crime that at least 2 people on the current county commission are also committing, and that many others in the past have committed. Supposedly putting down the wrong address when you put down your boyfriend's address, and he's one of the chicken people in Memphis who doesn't want any liability or risk of being focused on
Mm-hmm.
It's bad. It's really bad. And the other thing, we don't pay attention to these judgeships. The Republican Party last year ran a Red to the Roots campaign, and they said the most important offices in the entire state in which they were going to focus on were judgeships and district attorneys. And that's how you control the place. You've got a so-called ethics committee around here that comes back with these reports clearing certain people of wrongdoing, but that is really nothing because those concerns are still there in so much as the ethics committee has no power. All it can do is write recommendations to go to the DA. And this town is tightly controlled, and we've yet to see anybody African-American operate in the two most important county positions, which do not consist of the mayor's office, do not consist of being on a county commission, but consist of the sheriff's position and the DA's position.
Hello?
Yeah, I mean,
I was saying that I was thinking about Randy Wade. I mean, he should have won that. It seems the sheriff office. He did win. Okay.
He actually won in Chancery Court. What happens is the election commission appealed, and his lawyers were too chicken to do it pro bono since they were nominally Democratic too. They wanted big money. Randy said they couldn't afford it and couldn't raise it.
What about Cohen? I mean, what about Cohen? He was tight with Cohen at one point. Steve Cohen, the representative.
Cohen's Cohen, but Cohen's not going to finance a lawsuit like that. And that was before he got on with Cohen, by the way. Next thing you get is Benny Cobb. Benny Cobb said about Oldham, who actually is in there now, he said, you weren't anything but a lieutenant on the police department. I was a captain and a chief on the sheriff's department. So, of course, Sidney Chisholm, who was out of work, now has himself $100,000 a year job working for Oldham in his office as an executive staff member for supporting Oldham instead of supporting Benny Cobb. You see how that goes?
Yes, sir.
So,
oh, man. Wow.
See, we need real leadership. Not somebody you just see right before an election that comes up being, oh, I'm so nice, and proper, and, I break all the rules, you just don't know about it, but, I get along well with white people, that's what you need, and then don't do anything when they get in, if they can get in. So this town could be it if we only started acting cohesive. And one thing that is right there in the background is this city actually has had more Ferguson-type incidents than Ferguson has. It's just, it hit the fan in Ferguson, and the media picked up on Ferguson and ignored several hundred other incidents, including some here, that might have been just as inflammatory. So once again, you've got a situation looking at you right in the face, Ferguson, a suburb of St. Louis that has 78% of its population being African American, doesn't have but 2 out of about 16 elected officials black, and doesn't have but 2 black cops out of 58. And they haven't even registered 150 new people to vote since this stuff has started.
Well, let me ask you this, because you said we had several Ferguson-like incidents. Now, we do have a black mayor. We had a black mayor since 91. We have a black police director. We got a lot of black police officers. So really, is it about skin color? I mean, is it about having black cops?
That is. See, what's going on is you have to look at the dynamics. When Doc Harrington was in, if somebody on the police department sneezed the wrong way and didn't cover his mouth, and the director didn't do anything about it, that director was fired before he got home and found out about it looking at himself on television.
Yes, sir.
Now, AC doesn't seem to have a good rapport with the police department. Now, the current director is a fine young man. He is the youngest in the city's history. He's 42, I think. A good man, good man. But see, he needs some backup that's a bit lacking, where somebody will get on what's going down, back him up and say, you do it the right way or hit the highway. You do it this way or look at Social Security, not Social Security, but you look at the right bureau come Monday morning to appeal your termination. We need some more backup and some more attention being paid to stuff. One of the worst boondoggles is this stuff about the city of Memphis being responsible for the rape crisis kits, now 20,000, that haven't been tested. We'll see they come from Cordova, Bartlett, Millington, Germantown, Arlington. So what does the city of Memphis have to do with that? Second thing, they paid Ronnie Coleman all this money to sort through them, which basically means pick out the VIP types we know and love so they won't get prosecuted and destroy their kits, or the kits that reveal who they are. And then some concern out of New York that's giving some payback on this kickback is going to get somewhere around $8 to $9 million over 7 years, when TBI has been coming through saying we're ready to do it right now, no charge to the city. They've been rebuffed several times when they come through.
Oh, wow.
It's awful. They reopened the investigation on Nora Jackson's father, who got killed a few years before her mother, right next door to a city precinct, police precinct. Nobody at the precinct seems to have heard the gunfire, and the case is unsolved. But he left quite a few $1 million to his late wife and to his daughter. Now, it develops that what happens is the DA's office suppressed the evidence, claimed it didn't have it, but some investigators turned the evidence over anyway later. And Nora Jackson's mother, late mother, was killed a little more than an hour after she had sex with somebody. Well, there was a sample taken, and the DA's office suppressed the results. But once they came out, it turned out to be a white preacher from up here in Jackson, Tennessee, that was known to everybody, including the DA's office. And the aunt and uncle split $1.5 million insurance money that was supposed to go to Nora Jackson, and also are trying to angle in on getting what's in the quite a few million in the estate that should go to Nora Jackson. You see, its fixes on. One case they had that the Supreme Court just flat out dismissed once they got to the bottom of it. Wyrick, the DA, was trying to get this property down here that was on the corner of Airways and Winchester Boulevard out at the airport. There were those strip joints that Art Baldwin had operated. Well, when the feds went after Art Baldwin, what happened is that Danny Owens got it. When Danny Owens wouldn't think on Baldwin, they went after Danny Owens. He turned it over to his son, Dave, who was 19 at the time. They went after Dave. He sold it to a Ford person. Well, Amy Wyrick was trying to buy that property. So she didn't tell anybody. She had a personal interest in the outcome, so she falsified evidence, manufactured evidence, concealed evidence, and engaged in gross prosecutorial misconduct. And the state Supreme Court said she engaged in perjury when she denied she had an involvement in this. So when they found out about it, they just set the conviction aside and dismissed the indictment. You see, this kind of thing's going on. They prosecuted Henry Brooks for supposedly putting her boyfriend's address down rather than some other one, which was still in the county. But Wyrick says she and her husband are together, but the husband lives in Mississippi and is registered to vote there. See, so you check her and you find out where she claims to be registrable from. She doesn't pay the utilities, phone bill, any kind of bill at that place, and there's no lease that she has. So where does she live, by the way? See, so there are all kinds of things in there. It's inequitous, and we are cherry picked. Pick that one there, that one he's getting too uppity. This one knows too much. That one over there, he's getting difficult. Well, let's threaten to get this one over here so we get his son in line. There's all kinds of.
Well, I'm hearing it's incredible what you're saying, Judge Brown, because this narrative is not getting out through the local media, but like you said, they have amplified and they over-exaggerated, the doings of one Sister Henry Brooks. But with Amy Roderick, all this stuff has been suppressed. And so my thing is this: where is the counter narrative going to come from? I mean, if her stuff is being suppressed while other things are being elevated and taken out of context, where can we go to for reliable news sources in the city? What places would you recommend, organizations or people?
Like your show right here. Get the word out.
Mm-hmm.
Because 3, 5, 13 are not. The commercial appeal is definitely not. The Memphis Flyer sometimes gets interested, but they got other things that they think are more appealing to their core readership. See, we had reporters on the commercial appeal, but they're like, what's his name? Otis Sanford.
Yeah.
And the handkerchief head Uncle Tom, like that character played by Samuel Jackson in Django.
Mm-hmm.
He's so far up into being useless, it's pathetic. And we need a new brand of leadership. But I am very disturbed. We have many, many, many black lawyers in this town, young ones, but they're so scared of their own shadows, they won't do what we old guys did and those who went before us, which is take on the difficult causes that advance the interest of the people. I have to be about business and money is what speaks, and I don't want to get too in or even if you got the money, that will upset too many people that I depend on, and I just can't afford to jeopardize my business. No longer a profession. It's a hack business that only requires that you advertise and nobody knows what you're about.
Right.
We need more aggressive young black people. We need more aggressive young white people who are about being right about things. We need to bring in the Hispanic community, which, by the way, the U.S. Census Bureau is 38% of the local population, but they don't get recognized as such.
Oh, wow. Okay.
See, that makes a big difference. The Tea Party jumped all over the rules about redistricting in California, and they were oh so happy until, whoa, wowee, whoopee, looky here. There is now 78% of the state Senate is, Democrat, and 82% of the state House is Democrat. What happened? Well, guess what? A demographic shift. 52% of California as of January last year is now Hispanic.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't realize it.
Wow.
See, there's something we can do. Let's get up off of our lazy behinds and do something. Young people, get radical. You don't have to just go around getting crazy, sag-bagged and dragged, looking like you've been turned out the penitentiary. We need to get it so that we got causes and things to be involved in. You don't have a cause, you're pretty sorry when you got nothing else to do.
Yeah, I was thinking about when you're saying all this stuff, the lack of mentorship, like the lack of rites of passage for young black males. We got aggressive black teens, we got aggressive black youth, but they use their aggression in the wrong way, but they have no vision, so we have no organization.
I had a setup that I did when I was on the bench, and we really got into psychoanalyzing. Just about everybody went through my court system, my courtroom with certain offenses. They are suicidal, which have been brought up in the church, so they are very reluctant to put a pistol to their own heads and pull the trigger. So they go out and provoke somebody to do them the favor of killing them. See, the drive-by is not trying to get back at somebody. It's trying to provoke somebody into coming back and getting you. This thing about drugs is, the hard drugs, they're not about getting high. It's about trying to die. See, it's socially acceptable suicide. On the other side, it goes, oh, my God, did you hear about poor Alan? Yeah, what happened? Oh, my God. You know, he was walking around talking about he had no purpose, and he was so bored, and nothing was challenging. Oh, my God, he jumped out of his father's office building from the 28th floor. Oh, no. Well, you know, for us, we get, hey, man, you hear what happened over Stomp Daddies, man? Man, Earl was over there, man. Me, Jamal, everything, man. Jamal, a bunch of we was hitting that glass D, man. There's some fire smoke up in there, man. Next thing we know, man, Jamal down on the floor, man, eyes rolled up top his head, man, spit come all out his mouth, heels was kicking. Man, we called 911, man, after we cleaned the place up, man, but it was too late. Dude's heart buzzed out before he could get to the emergency room. Hey, man, that's cold blooded, man. I feel for his mama. Ain't that the second one she done lost this year? That's socially acceptable suicide.
Wow, I mean, you hit the nail on the head right there. I mean, I think a lot of people will agree with what your assessment is of the situation. So let me ask you this then. Let me ask you about spreading nationally, but it's really locally still. I'm just want to get your impressions on the Walter Scott thing in South Carolina. It seemed like he, was a victim of the child support system, the way they got things set up for us in terms of child support. And I know you made some comments earlier about the way they do things in Memphis. But what is your take on that case? I mean, by him getting shot and also by him running away. I don't know why he ran away, but I'm assuming it's child support.
Maybe he was smoking something he shouldn't have been smoking. But, it's crazy. See, that's another incident of you don't count if you don't count politically. Nobody cares about you if you don't influence what goes on.
Mm-hmm.
See, you could be the overwhelming majority in an area, but if the majority doesn't vote, nobody gives a damn about you. Mm-hmm. You don't count. You get 22% to come out and vote. That's who counts, because that's who puts the person in charge in our place. See, most of what's going on is political and a way of looking at stuff. We don't have boys getting man trained. Mm-hmm. Too many of them don't have a father around, and oftentimes it's not because the father's running. His mama doesn't know who the daddy is or doesn't want him involved.
Mm-hmm.
And see, there's a lie going on. That's what Jesse Jackson got in trouble about when he, over the open mic, said that thing about Obama in 2008 about him getting his balls cut off. See, what Obama was saying was, my brothers, we are the worst in the country when it comes to paying child support. It was a Father's Day thing. And that is a flat-out demagogic lie. At the judicial conferences I go to 4 times a year, every year we go over the statistics on ethnicity and child support. Do you know which group in the whole of the United States of America pays its child support most regularly? Is African American men. Now, that is not the image you get from what you see at our juvenile court, because they don't handle them downtown. They handle them out in the surrounding areas. They work stuff out. Mm-hmm. The media puts it out that we don't pay. Well, we're better than anybody else.
Wow. You sure don't get that impression, right? You get the,
No,
and I don't. Yeah. Mm.
And I know Jesse Jackson knew that. We talked about it one time, if I recall.
Wow. And speaking of Jesse, I know you've been a definite advocate for Brother Jackson in terms of people believing, because I know I met him down in Ferguson in St. Louis. I interviewed him, and people got on my case about interviewing Jesse black folks. Although Jesse be on everybody's news station, they say he killed Dr. King and all this other stuff, but you've been saying
he didn't have anything to do with it.
Mm-hmm.
I was the last judge that had that James Earl Ray matter. First off, Ray didn't kill King.
Right.
You'll never find out who, but it was a 2-man team, and I know what weapon they used. It was a XM-21 set up specially. They made 63 of them. The military wanted to know why the FBI got 5 on invoice late December 1967. A month and a half after the King killing, they only had 4 of them to invoice because one of them turned up missing.
Wow.
That's
You know what?
King got shot with, not that little chicken piece of 760 Game Master that they got down there at the Civil Rights Museum that they recklessly accepted so that it's now out of the chain of custody and can never be used for evidence again. Well, when I had it tested, it is not the rifle. Now, Jesse Jackson is not the culprit. We do have some suspects, but he's not the one. One of the things that I actually did is I went around and I talked to all of the suspects. Reverend Lowry said, we need to get to the bottom of this.
Mm-hmm.
Whatever I can do. Jesse Jackson, we need to get to the bottom of this. Whatever I can do. Certain other ones said, we need to let sleeping dogs lie. And incidentally, they were the ones that the attention had focused on as being the inside persons. Now, see, too many people in Memphis politics, past and present, that are black have been doing the wrong kind of things. A lot of them were sexual. A lot of them had to do with hanky-panky with somebody else's money. A lot of them had to do with taking money under the table. And they were subject to blackmail, extortion, and control.
Well, yeah, I had recently, last month, actually, I want to play
one more time. I was the last judge on it, and I've devoted years since to researching what happened. Jesse Jackson is not a suspect. He doesn't have anything to do with it.
Well, I'm glad you said that you've been consistent in saying so. But I also want to play you a clip. I had actually called Morrell McCullough, the guy, in the picture that's kneeling over Dr. King as he's laying out on the balcony. I called him last month.
That man became the first African American to be employed as an operative by the CIA.
Yes, sir. And I go ahead. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, Judge.
Let's go ahead.
Yeah, I'm gonna play the clip. I actually called him. His phone number's in the white pages of all things. I thought, so is this the same guy, Morrell McCullough? I called him last March, and this is what he told me on the phone, which I was surprised.
Hello.
Hello, Mr. McCullough.
Yes.
How you doing, sir?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. My name is Ron Hurd. I was calling. Are you Mr. McCullough? Are you from Memphis, Tennessee?
Yes.
And I was calling because I'm doing some research on Dr. King. Are you the same McCullough that was in Memphis the day that Dr. King got killed?
Yeah.
I just want to. Are you available to ask questions?
No. I don't do interviews.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir. But you are the same McCullough. You was there the day he got killed.
Oh sure. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but were you CIA at the time?
I don't answer questions. Goodbye.
All right. Thank you.
And that's what he told me. I found his number in the white pages online. So, what are your thoughts about that?
That's nice. That's very nice.
He did deny he wasn't there. Go ahead. Yes, sir.
By the way, the shot came from the fire station, not from the flophouse.
Okay.
The detective who was the first one there, who retired before his death, Captain Tommy Smith, head of homicide, gave us an affidavit, a video, too. And he describes a 3.5 foot thick limb growing diagonally across the window at the Flophouse restroom. You couldn't even see the Lorraine Motel. He said he came back an hour and a half later with crime scene, and somebody cut the whole tree down. Now, where the shot came from is from the dormitory area of the fire station. It was fired through windows that slid in those days, and you would be on a solid bench inside, about 10 feet inside the window, not hanging out of it. And you would have a spotter and somebody from inside, who we have suspects on that, who gave a call to indicate that King was coming out. What we have been able to put back together is King was going out the opposite side of the motel when somebody came and got him. And it was not Jesse Jackson to say that your fans are outside by the pool, Dr. King. They want you to wave at them. And that person goes out, and then, let's say, does he duck back in the place? And that's one suspect. So They almost missed a shot. The setup they had a suppressor on it, and they used special 30 caliber ammunition that was subsonic. That means it's not faster than the speed of sound, and that's important when you're trying to be quiet or you're trying to disguise the origin of the shot. If the bullet is supersonic, it leaves a small little shock wave crack, sort of a miniature sonic boom. So that changes it from the power of a rifle to the power of a pistol, which means you take a headshot, which is what they tried to do. See, with a soft point bullet at about 45 yards, which is the distance across the street to the fire station to where King was, a solid hit anywhere in the torso from the chest down just below the diaphragm. You shoot somebody with an expanding bullet, and they can be standing next to the emergency room of a hospital, major hospital, and they're still dead. So they took a headshot. The bullet hit King on the right side of his face, on the point of the cheek, went in through the roof of the mouth, knocked out some molars, went through his tongue, and exited between his lower jaws. At that point, he probably would have recovered, but he wouldn't have talked too well. The bullet then hit the clavicle. That's the collarbone. It ricocheted along the clavicle under the skin, which is not uncommon with bullets, traveled over the right shoulder, down across the right scapula, headed downward toward the left side, and lodged between the left scapula and the thick back skin. It nicked his carotid artery on the way. That's what killed him, because the bullet didn't penetrate his thorax. So he bled out. So they were taking a headshot, and they almost missed it.
Judge, you ever heard about, I know I read in William Pepper's An Act of State that there was some it was like, it said there was some film footage of the actual assassination floating around somewhere. People actually filmed the whole thing.
I haven't seen that, but I have something even better. Some of what Pepper reaches as a conclusion about all these funny named people, Raul and all of that, all that is code words and stuff, and what really seems to have been going on is they had 4, maybe 5 alternative scapegoats that they could blame. Ray wasn't even in town, but they put it on him. What is the bombshell is in recent years I got approached by a representative of the State Department and the Defense Department. This person had invented an algorithm that the State Department and Defense Department were using. You don't need to hook anybody up to it. All you need is a clear video footage and the audio of somebody like Bin Laden, Putin, English, British Prime Minister, Premier of the People's Republic speaking, and you use the video, and it's got 34 categories from absolute misleading, et cetera, to actually being truthful. They do a animated reconstruction of the body to deal with the fact that when people talk, only 15% of what they're saying has to do with the words, 35% is the tone, and 50 or more percent's got to do with the body language. So the algorithm washes this and comes up with an analysis not only of whether the person's being truthful, but what they're actually saying. They got 5.5 hours worth of the last interview tapes made of James Earl Ray. Their purpose was that they wanted the bottom line on an absolute liar. They were shocked when Ray came out being absolutely truthful, all 5.5 hours. The only 2 instances of ambiguities were this. Question was, is if you didn't shoot King, who did? And Ray said, I'm not sure. And that came out as an ambiguity. next one that comes up says, all right, you didn't shoot King. That's right. And that comes up number 34, which is completely truthful.
Mm-hmm.
But okay, you didn't shoot King. Who did? He says, I don't know. Or really, I'm not sure. That comes out as an ambiguity in the middle.
Mm-hmm.
So in other words, they came to me with the information that was shocking. Now, why did they come to me? Well, J. Edgar Hoover knew about this. They know he knew about it. I know he knew about it. In the American Repository for the Records of Assassinations and Assassination Attempts set up by Congress and authorized by executive order by George Herbert Walker Bush and Bill Clinton, you were able to get copies of memorandum and all the documents, and the FBI is actually discussing the merits of killing King, whether he'd be more dangerous as a dead martyr or as a live agitator for anti-war stuff and as a revitalizer for the labor movement. They weren't even concerned about civil rights. So anyway, they were concerned that George W. Bush and then Obama had launched off on something that came out of a law review article that said the president had authority outside of the Constitution of the country to order the assassination of any American citizen, even inside the country, that he felt was a threat to the country's security, even if that person had committed no crime. It was not subject to appeal just on the president's authority. So they, as officers sworn to uphold the Constitution, that is, military officers and others, were very concerned about this kind of policy being in place. It's actually been used, and a couple of people at the minimum have been killed on order for basically First Amendment speech matters that the Obama administration felt were harmful to the country. So they had an interest in getting the dynamics on this so that even though Homeland Security and the Patriot Act had now made legal what J. Edgar Hoover did illegally. See, Hoover could have been put in a federal penitentiary. But he didn't. He had power and he blackmailed people. He got that power, and people know very little about the origin of the FBI. It stems from one black man, Jack Johnson, first black world heavyweight champion. And he used to take young white girls across state lines, and some of the southern elected officials in D.C. didn't like that. So they came up with the Mann Act, which made it illegal to take women across state lines when they got money. They wanted to call it prostitution, white slave trade, etc. So they prosecuted Jack Johnson under that, and they got a conviction. But the FBI, the Federal Bureau of Investigation, was set up to investigate Mann Act violations. J. Edgar Hoover was assigned to investigate and interview the prostitutes in New York City brothels. Now, that meant he got the blackmail information on a whole bunch of elected officials. So eventually he was made head of the FBI, and then the FBI got assigned to it after World War I, about 1919, with the duty of checking all of the records for alcohol production in the country, legal alcohol production. Now, that's why for the longest time the qualifications for being an FBI agent were that you be a certified public accountant and or a lawyer specializing in taxation or involved with taxation. So the FBI were not authorized to carry firearms until Hoover pulled in some blackmail strings to get that done.
Oh, wow.
That's a little bit of history on how we have the FBI.
It's also like it brought down Jack Johnson, and they hired the first black agent to bring down Marcus Garvey.
He wasn't really an agent. He's undercover. Wasn't a full. Interestingly enough, the first two presidents of the NAACP, first two long-term presidents of the NAACP were actually sworn agents of the FBI.
Wow. Oh, my God. Makes all sense now. Makes a lot of sense.
And see, Hoover thought the Black Power, not Black Power, the Black Civil Rights Movement was a communist front activity.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting.
Oh, wow, that's amazing.
Anyway, get back to something.
Oh, yeah, Judge. It's an honor, man.
On this documentary, but I hope I didn't get too far afield, but that's just some general information.
It's an honor.
To be aware of.
It's an honor.
Around here, we need to get these youth, and we need to take these ties off sometimes. We need to get back in there and start giving these boys man training. They have no fathers. There's nobody giving them a clue. They want to be men, but they don't know how. Now, I'll just give one more anecdote. I used to have some real live made men from a certain hypothetical organization Hoover said did not exist. And they'd come in, and I'd get a thing that went, "Hey, you're just trying to tell you about being a man. It's like you want to insult us by trying to say you like the black mafia. No. We protect the old ladies. We protect the women. We protect the children. We don't allow drugs to be sold where we live. You bring poison into your own community. You disrespect your senior citizens. You rip off your women. You have no profit. You have no respect. You make them prostitutes. What is wrong with you? We killed somebody, came in our neighborhoods and did this. You just don't understand, but just trying to make you become men. So where you are is a better, safer, more secure place. That's like he's been telling you.
Wow.
What actually is going on out here, and I hate to say this, it looks like a plantation. And it looks like a slave culture. And they just don't have any masters to keep them in line. You see, they haven't transitioned to becoming men where it is a supreme value to the men.
That's right.
That there's order, prosperity, value, continuity between generations, and safety in a community.
Yes, sir.
We haven't gone there.
Well, Judge Brown, wow, I just want to thank you for sharing your time with us today and dropping these jewels for our people. And I look forward to amplifying your wisdom among the masses through my humble means. And before you go, I just want to wrap up the Walter Scott thing, because you were a former prosecutor. And I want to know from your experience and what you have seen with the Walter Scott situation, will Michael Slager get charged? Will he be convicted?
I have no idea. See, remember, you can't trust today's media. They're about ratings and entertainment more than accurate reporting. Today's media looks like tabloid journalism. It's not accurate. I would not render an opinion on what I think is going to happen based on news media, because probably what you're hearing is not what actually went on. Trayvon Martin and Zimmerman, they got to talking about the castle doctrine and no retreat and all of that. But you see, what the media got wrong is, you know who had the rights of no retreat? It wasn't Zimmerman. It was Trayvon Martin.
Right.
Usually what would have happened in a case, 199 out of 100, Trayvon Martin would have been the defendant. He would have been an adult. He would have been armed in Florida. And he would have shot Zimmerman to death, and he would be defending himself with a self-defense theory. And he didn't have to retreat. When Zimmerman's getting his head pounded into the sidewalk, by his own admission at that point, Trayvon Martin had seen a pistol. Trayvon Martin was the victim of an assault, unprovoked assault by Zimmerman. So Zimmerman is still persisting in the assault when Trayvon finds he's got access to deadly weapons, which can kill or seriously bodily injure him. He has a right to take Zimmerman's life, and he's doing it, pounding his head into the sidewalk. Right. He had a right to do that. Now, the DA doesn't worry about black votes because we don't vote in that area. But there are a lot of Cubanos from the first generation that Castro threw out of there back in the 50s. They came, and they vote. So Zimmerman was a Cubano, descendant of the first generation, the first wave that came over. And they played it for his benefit. That's what you rely on in the media. Everybody's talking about no retreat, we got to change this, and Castle Doctrine. That only applies if somebody got shot inside the house or inside the yard. That is not what happened.
Oh, man. Wait. Go ahead, I'm sorry.
I would be remiss if I had stated an opinion without having some detailed information that you do not get through the media.
Well, let me ask you this then, like, could the same be applied? Like, we got all this video, though. We have video. What about the Suge Knight thing? People said it was self-defense. I mean, he got a bail, $25 million bail, but the guy, he did own up to the fact that he did punch Suge Knight first. He did attack him first, the one who survived the truck being backed over.
See, the thing of it is that you can't escalate the level of force if it's mano a mano, fist, hand, that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
Unless you are elderly or something wrong with you, so you're infirm.
He said he got diabetes real bad. Like, he's legally blind in one eye. That's what he said. He got diabetes and stuff.
Yeah, you can't escalate it up into a level of force where you start trying to kill somebody with a deadly weapon.
Right.
And a weapon doesn't have to be a pistol, a knife, or anything. It's anything that by the mode, manner, and fashion of its use or attempted use is being used as a deadly weapon. Back in the days, they had war clubs. An aluminum softball bat makes a better war club than an old-time war club.
Right.
Wow. A bludgeon makes a very good weapon. If you ever, you have some skills, and you're someplace in a strange city and it's not too cool, do the best thing you can. You know what that is? Stop at a Walgreens and buy yourself a thick magazine, roll it up. That makes for a damn fine weapon.
I'll keep that in mind. Especially if I survive a teen mob attack in Memphis. It's going to be a hot summer.
Well, see, that shouldn't happen, but they don't need another Ferguson incident. But the elected officials in this town are practically guaranteeing that there's going to be one.
Wow.
We got these young men getting locked up with no jobs and ruined from getting a job on purpose because it makes money for some, and it keeps them from voting. Others will have that concern, and keeps them out of the job market. So you keep disenfranchising people economically, politically, and socially, you got a mess.
Yes, sir. Well, Judge, I ain't going to hold you no more, man. It's always an honor and a blessing to talk to you. Yeah, and I look forward to talking to you again very soon. And also, I like to work with you on the mentoring part. I like to just meet with you and talk about that as well. I think that's very important.
I'm here for you.
Yes, sir. Well, you take care of yourself. God bless.
I'm out.
Yes, sir. And that does it for this edition of We All Be Radio. I was proud to have Brother Judge Joe Brown on the air. He's such a generous man. He actually won. I believe he actually won the election.
We did. Right now,
we know it.
Looking at, is there more than 9,000 votes that were cast in this election, the people who voted. In some races, there are 11,000 votes for that race that were uncounted.
Yes, sir. Well, we're going to have to fight the good fight.
Let's say that. I'm out. I got to get back to this project down here with Club Paradise.
Yes, sir. I look forward to going to I never look forward to going to Club Paradise.
only place in Memphis where you can see 5,000 people, and the city hasn't done anything about it, when there are people ready and willing to get it back together. All right?
Yes, sir. All right, Judge. Yes, sir. We're going to do it. Yes, sir. It's always an honor. And thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. And thank everybody for listening. I mean, it's a very important show. Like Judge Joe Brown, he's on a tight schedule, but he's down for the people. He stayed true. He never strayed from the cause, and for that he should be commended. He's a true, authentic person. Like I always tell people, if you want to make a great contribution to this world, be who you really are. Be your authentic self. Because in the words of the great Thelonious Monk, he said to be a genius, you just got to be yourself. So with that, I wish you all well. In the words of another great jazz man, Duke Ellington, we love you madly, and keep on producing and pushing, family. And I'm out.